My name is Penelope, and I am 34 years old. 3 days ago, I buried my husband Marcus after a car accident tore him from my life without warning. The funeral was cold formal, nothing like the warm man I loved. His mother Diane stood rigid at the service, her eyes dry while mine burned with tears I could not stop. His sister Brielle dabbed at her face with a tissue, but something felt performative about her grief. I told myself they were processing loss differently. I told myself family grieves in their own way. I had no idea that the next day everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and family would shatter completely. Before we begin, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about family loyalty and the person I married. Let me take you back 6 years to a rainy afternoon in Seattle. I was sitting in a small cafe near Pike Place Market grading papers from my preschool class when Marcus walked in shaking water from his jacket. He ordered coffee, caught my eye, and smiled. That smile changed my life. We started talking about architecture, his passion, and early childhood education, mine. He told me about the house he was designing for a family in Bellevue. I told him about the 4-year-old in my class who insisted dinosaurs were still alive and hiding in closets. We talked for 3 hours. Our courtship was slow and genuine. Marcus took me to the Oregon coast for our first trip together, where we walked barefoot on Cannon Beach and talked about our dreams. He wanted to design homes that felt like sanctuaries. I wanted to create a classroom where every child felt safe enough to be themselves. We shared meals, shared silences, shared everything. After 2 years of dating, he proposed on the same beach where we had walked that first time. I said yes before he finished asking. We married in a small ceremony surrounded by friends. His family attended, but even then I felt the chill. Diane. His mother wore black to our wedding. Not navy, not dark blue, but funeral black. She smiled tightly when people congratulated us, but her eyes held something else. Disapproval, maybe, or calculation. His father, Harold, had passed away 10 years earlier, leaving Diane with considerable wealth and an iron grip on family matters. Brielle, Marcus's younger sister, was 31 and still living in their mother's shadow, desperate for approval that never quite came. Marcus and I bought a 2-story house in the Portland suburbs. Well, technically, Marcus had purchased it before we married, but we spent months making it ours. We repainted the kitchen a soft yellow because I loved morning light. We planted rose bushes in the backyard because he said they reminded him of his grandmother, the only family member who had ever shown him unconditional love. We hung photos of our travels, our wedding, our life together. Every room held our story. But family dinners at Diane's house were ordeals I endured for Marcus's sake. She would comment on how I set the table, suggesting her way was more elegant. She questioned my teaching career, asking when I planned to pursue something more ambitious. She mentioned repeatedly that Marcus could have married someone from a better family, someone with connections. Brielle would chime in with small cutting remarks about how lucky I was to have married into their family, as if I had won a prize rather than married a man I loved. Marcus always defended me. He would take my hand under the table and squeeze it gently, a silent message that we were a team. After these dinners driving home, he would apologize. "Don't worry about them," he would say. "We have each other. That is all that matters." And I believed him. I believed that our love was enough to weather his family's coldness. About 2 months before the accident, things shifted. Diane started asking strange questions about our house. Who was on the deed? Did we have a will? Had Marcus updated his paperwork since getting married? I found it odd, but assumed she was getting older and thinking about estate planning for herself. Marcus seemed uncomfortable with these conversations. I caught him once on the phone in his home office, his voice tense. "Mom, I have already told you no. This is not up for discussion." He saw me in the doorway and quickly ended the call, kissing my forehead and telling me it was nothing important. 2 weeks before he died, Brielle cornered me at a family birthday party. "You got lucky marrying into this family," she said, sipping wine and looking at me with an expression I could not quite read. "Some people spend their whole lives trying to get what you got by just being pretty enough at the right time." I did not know how to respond, so I excused myself and found Marcus. He was talking with his uncle about a building project downtown. When I touched his arm, he immediately knew something was wrong and took me outside. I told him what Brielle said. He looked angry, truly angry, something I rarely saw. "She is jealous," he said. "She always has been. Ignore her." But now looking back, I wonder if those moments were warnings. I wonder if some part of Marcus knew what his family was capable of and was trying to protect me. I wonder if I should have paid more attention to the tension in his shoulders when his mother called, or the way he held me a little tighter after visits with his family, as if he was afraid something might pull me away from him. We were planning to start a family. Just a week before the accident, we had talked about baby names while cooking dinner together. Marcus wanted something classic if we had a boy. I liked the idea of something nature-inspired if we had a girl. We laughed about how we would handle the sleep deprivation, how we would balance work and parenting, how our child would probably inherit his height and my stubbornness. Life felt full of possibility. The future stretched ahead of us, bright and real. Then came that Friday night. Marcus was driving home from Vancouver, where his firm was overseeing a commercial project. The route took him north on Interstate 5, a drive he had made dozens of times. It was around 10:30 at night. I was home already in my pajamas reading a book in bed and waiting for him to text that he was close. Instead, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Mrs. Penelope?" a calm female voice asked. "Yes, this is she," I replied, already feeling my stomach drop. "This is Providence Portland Medical Center. Your husband Marcus was brought in following a vehicle accident. You need to come immediately." The drive to the hospital is a blur. I remember throwing on jeans and a sweater. I remember Jasmine, my best friend since college, calling me back after seeing my frantic text and insisting on driving me because my hands were shaking too badly. I remember the sterile smell of the emergency room, the fluorescent lights that made everything look unreal. A doctor approached me with that expression medical professionals learn, the one that prepares you for unbearable news. "I am so sorry," he began, and those 4 words ended my world. We did everything we could, but the injuries were too severe. He did not suffer. They let me see him. Marcus looked peaceful as if he was sleeping, but his skin was already cooling. I held his hand and told him I loved him. I told him about the roses blooming in our backyard, how I had planned to surprise him with his favorite dinner this weekend, how much I needed him to wake up. But he did not wake up. The man who had promised to grow old with me, who had danced with me in our kitchen just days earlier, was gone. Just gone. 38 years old and gone in an instant because a deer ran across the highway and he swerved to avoid it. The police report said it was fast. The semi-truck in the other lane could not stop in time. Marcus was killed on impact. They said he did not suffer, but I suffered. I was suffering. The pain was physical, a weight crushing my chest that made it hard to breathe. Diane and Brielle arrived at the hospital 30 minutes after me. I was still in the room with Marcus, still holding his hand, when I heard Diane's voice in the hallway. She walked in, looked at her son's body, and her face remained strangely composed. No tears, no breakdown, just a long look, then she turned to me. "Did Marcus leave any documents at home?" she asked. I stared at her confused. "What, documents, papers, a will perhaps? Did he keep those things at the house?" "I do not know, Diane, he just died. Can we talk about this later?" "We will need to make arrangements," she continued as if I had not spoken. "As his mother, I will handle everything." Brielle stood behind her, dabbing at her eyes, but when our eyes met, something in her expression was not grief. It was something else, something that made my skin crawl. But I was too shattered to analyze it then. I just wanted them to leave so I could be alone with Marcus one more time. The days leading up to the funeral were surreal. Diane took control immediately. She chose the funeral home, selected the casket, picked the flowers, decided on the service order, all without consulting me. When I tried to suggest something, she would smile tightly and say, "I know what Marcus would have wanted. I am his mother." Every decision was made as if I was not his wife, as if our 4 years of marriage meant nothing compared to her decades as his mother. Brielle called me repeatedly, asking about keys to the house, about where Marcus kept important papers, about safe deposit boxes. "Just trying to help," she would say when I asked why it mattered right now. "We need to make sure everything is organized." My friends rallied around me. Jasmine came over every day bringing food I could not eat and sitting with me while I cried. Her husband Troy helped with logistics, calling my school to arrange leave handling things I could not focus on. Jasmine kept saying something felt wrong about Diane and Brielle's behavior. They are acting like vultures, she said one evening as we sat on my couch. It has only been 3 days. Why are they so focused on paperwork and property? They are grieving. I said, defending them out of habit. Everyone processes death differently. But Jasmine shook her head. No, this is not grief. This is something else. Be careful, Penelope. The funeral took place on a gray Thursday morning. Rain fell steadily as we gathered at the church. I wore the black dress Marcus always said made me look elegant, even though I felt anything but elegant. I felt hollowed out, a shell going through motions. At the service, Diane insisted on sitting in the front row center. When I tried to sit next to her, she gestured to the seat behind her. Family sits in front, she said quietly. I was too tired, too broken to argue. So I sat in the second row surrounded by Jasmine and Troy and other friends, while Marcus's mother sat in the place that should have been mine. During her eulogy, Diane spoke at length about my son, about his childhood, his achievements, his success. She mentioned his work, his kindness, his intelligence. She did not mention me once, not once. It was as if our marriage had never happened, as if I had not been the person who knew his coffee order, who rubbed his shoulders after long days, who had promised to love him in sickness and health. I sat there listening to her erase me from his life story, and I felt anger starting to burn through the grief. After the burial, after the reception, where Diane played the grieving mother, while I stood awkwardly to the side, she approached me one final time. We need to talk tomorrow about the house, she said. What about it? Practical matters. Come prepared to discuss logistics. I nodded, too exhausted to push back. I went home to the empty house Marcus and I had built together, crawled into our bed, and cried until I fell into restless sleep. I had no idea that the next morning my entire life would implode. I woke early around 6 in the morning to an empty bed and the crushing realization that this was real. Marcus was not coming back. The house was too quiet. His toothbrush still sat in the holder next to mine. His jacket still hung by the door. Everything was exactly as he left it, except he would never walk through that door again. I could not stay inside. The walls felt too close, the silence too loud. I needed air movement, anything to keep from drowning in grief. I pulled on sneakers and walked through our neighborhood as the sun rose. The world kept turning, people kept living their normal lives, and I could not understand how everything continued when my entire existence had stopped. I walked for hours, not paying attention to where I was going, just moving. When I finally checked my phone, it was nearly 11 in the morning. I headed home exhausted, but slightly calmer. Maybe motion was the answer. Maybe I could walk through this grief one step at a time. I turned onto our street and saw my house at the end of the block. Our little yellow house with the rose bushes Marcus had planted. Home. I walked up the driveway, reached for my keys, and slid the key into the lock. It did not turn. I tried again, thinking maybe I was using the wrong key. But no, this was definitely the house key. I had used it 1,000 times. I jiggled it, tried forcing it gently, then tried the deadbolt key. Neither worked. Confusion turned to alarm. Had the lock broken? Had something happened while I was gone? I was about to call a locksmith when the door opened from inside. Diane stood there. She was wearing an apron. My apron. The one with little strawberries on it that Marcus bought me for my birthday. She held a coffee mug, steam rising from it, and she looked at me with an expression I can only describe as triumphant. "You are back," she said. "Good, saves me a phone call." "Diane, what are you doing here? How did you get in?" She stepped aside, and I walked into my own home, my heart starting to pound. Brielle was in the living room surrounded by cardboard boxes. My things, my books were packed, my photos were stacked on the coffee table, my decorative pillows were being shoved into a box labeled "Donate." "What is going on?" I asked, my voice rising. "Why are you packing my things?" Diane set her coffee down on the kitchen counter and faced me. The warmth she had shown at the funeral, fake as it was, had completely vanished. Her face was cold, calculating. "This is my son's house," she said simply. "Since he is gone, it reverts to family." I am family. I am his wife. You were his wife, Diane corrected. Without a husband and without a will, you have no claim here. This house is in Marcus's name alone. No will means it passes to next of kin. That is me. The room tilted. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. You cannot just take my house. It is not your house, Brielle chimed in, folding a throw blanket that Marcus and I bought together on a trip to Bend. It never was. You were just living here because Marcus allowed it. This is insane, I said. You cannot do this. Actually, we can, Diane said, pulling a folder from her designer purse. My lawyer confirmed everything this morning. No will, no spouse on the deed. And Oregon law is very clear about inheritance hierarchy. Blood relatives come first. She opened the folder and showed me official-looking documents I was too shocked to read properly. I had the locks changed this morning. The locksmith was very efficient. You had the locks changed. I repeated, my mind struggling to process this. To my home. To Marcus's home, Diane corrected. Soon to be my home. I have already spoken to a real estate agent about selling it, but I think I might keep it for a while. It is a lovely neighborhood. I looked around the room at the walls Marcus and I had painted together, at the photos of us that were now stacked in boxes at the life we had built, being dismantled before my eyes. This could not be happening. This was not real. You are grieving, I said, trying to find some rational explanation. You are not thinking clearly. Let us talk about this next week when you have had time to process. Diane laughed, actually laughed. Oh, sweetheart, I am thinking very clearly, more clearly than you, apparently. Did you really think Marcus would leave everything to someone he had only known for 6 years? You were a phase, a midlife crisis purchase. Now it is time for you to go. Brielle zipped up a box with exaggerated force. We have been generous, honestly. We could have just thrown your stuff on the lawn. Instead, we packed it nicely. You should thank us. Thank you. My voice came out strangled. You are stealing my life, and I should thank you. We are reclaiming family property, Diane said. There is a difference. Now you have until 6 this evening to remove these boxes. After that, I will have them donated. I suggest you start calling friends with trucks. I am calling the police, I said, reaching for my phone. Please do, Diane said, utterly confident. My lawyer is on speed dial. Everything I am doing is perfectly legal. You are actually the one who could be charged with trespassing if you refuse to leave. Brielle held up her phone. I have been documenting everything. Time-stamped photos, videos, witness statements. You try to fight this, and we will bury you in legal fees you cannot afford on a preschool teacher's salary. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. I called Jasmine. She answered on the first ring, heard the tears in my voice, and said she was coming immediately. I stood in the middle of what used to be my living room watching these women dismantle my life, and I could not do anything to stop it. Jasmine and Troy arrived 15 minutes later. Jasmine took one look at the situation and started yelling at Diane. Troy tried to reason with her, explaining that this was wrong, that I had rights as a spouse. Diane remained ice-cold, pointing to her legal documents, citing Oregon statutes, acting as if she had every right to steal my home the day after I buried my husband. You have until 6, she repeated. Or I call the police and have you all removed for trespassing. Jasmine looked at me. We can fight this. We can get a lawyer. With what money? Brielle said. She can barely afford rent anywhere. How is she going to afford a lawyer good enough to fight ours? Diane glanced at her watch. 5 hours and 43 minutes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to destroy something. But I was too numb, too shattered. Marcus had been dead for 4 days. 4 days. And his family was kicking me out of our home like I was nothing, like our marriage had meant nothing, like I was disposable trash to be thrown away now that he was gone. Troy started loading boxes into his truck. Jasmine helped me gather things, cursing under her breath. I moved through the house like a ghost, picking up pieces of my life. The photo album from our honeymoon. The ceramic bowl I made in a pottery class Marcus surprised me with. The quilt his grandmother had given us as a wedding present, probably the only member of his family who had actually loved me. Diane stood at the kitchen counter drinking coffee and watching us like a supervisor, making sure employees did not steal office supplies. When I reached for a set of cooking knives, she stopped me. Those stay. They came with the house. I bought those knives, I said. I bought them 2 years ago at Williams-Sonoma. Prove it, Diane replied. Do you have a receipt? No, then they stay. Every small cruelty was deliberate. Every theft was calculated. She was not just taking my house, she was taking my dignity. At 5:45, we loaded the last box. Everything I own now fit in the back of Troy's truck and Jasmine's SUV. 4 years of marriage reduced to a few cardboard boxes. I stood on the driveway looking at the house that was supposed to be my home for the rest of my life. Diane appeared at the door one final time. She was smiling, actually smiling. Drive safely, she called out. And Penelope, do not bother coming back. You are not welcome here anymore. I climbed into Jasmine's car, and as we pulled away, I looked back. Diane stood in the doorway of my house waving at me like she was seeing off a guest after a pleasant visit. The image burned itself into my memory. The cruelty of it. The casual destruction of everything I had loved. Jasmine drove me to her house in silence. What was there to say? I had just lost everything. My husband, my home, my belief that people were fundamentally good. In the span of 4 days, my entire life had been destroyed, and the people who destroyed it were blood relatives of the man I loved. That night, lying on Jasmine's guest bed, surrounded by boxes containing the remnants of my life, I could not stop crying. I cried for Marcus. I cried for the home we had built. I cried for the future that had been stolen from us. But underneath the tears, something else was building. Anger, rage, the beginning of something that would eventually become determination. But that night, I just cried. The first 3 days at Jasmine and Troy's house passed in a fog. I could not eat. I could not sleep. When I did sleep, I had nightmares of Diane's smile of Brielle packing my things of locks that would not open. I would wake up gasping, forgetting for a moment where I was thinking I was home with Marcus. Then reality would crash back. Marcus was dead. I was homeless. Everything was gone. Jasmine took time off work to stay with me. She brought me tea I did not drink and food I could not taste. Troy was endlessly patient, never making me feel like I was a burden, even though I knew I was disrupting their lives. Their kindness only made me feel worse. I could not understand how strangers treated me better than the family I had married into. On the 4th day, Jasmine sat down next to me on the couch. "We need to do something," she said gently. "We cannot let them get away with this." "They already did get away with it," I said, my voice hollow. "They have the house. They have the law on their side. I have nothing." "You have us," Troy said. "And you have the truth. Marcus loved you. He would not have wanted this." "But he did not leave a will," I said. Maybe Diane was right. Maybe I was just a phase. Maybe he never really intended for me to have anything. "Do not say that," Jasmine said fiercely. "I saw how that man looked at you. He adored you. There has to be an explanation." "What explanation? He died without protecting me, without making sure I would be okay. What does that say about our marriage?" Jasmine was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "It says he did not expect to die at 38. No one does. But that does not mean he did not love you. We need to talk to a lawyer. We need to see if there is anything we can do." "With what money?" I echoed Brielle's cruel words. "I am a preschool teacher. I cannot afford a lawyer who can fight people like Diane." "Let me worry about that," Troy said. "My cousin is a lawyer. Let me call him." I did not have the energy to argue. I just nodded and let them make calls, send emails, try to find some path forward. I did not believe anything would help, but I also had nothing left to lose. 2 days later, I found myself sitting in a small office across from Mr. Patterson, a lawyer in his mid-50s with kind eyes and a gentle manner. Troy had convinced him to take an initial consultation for free. I told him everything: the marriage, the accident, the theft, all of it. As I spoke, he took notes, asked clarifying questions, and listened without judgment. When I finished, he sat back in his chair. "Let me be honest with you, Penelope. This is a difficult situation. The house is in Marcus's name only. Without a will, Oregon law does favor blood relatives in inheritance. However, as a spouse, you are entitled to a portion of the estate. The question is how much and what assets are involved." Diane said I get nothing. Diane is not a lawyer, Mr. Patterson said dryly. Did Marcus have any other assets? Bank accounts, investments, life insurance? I do not know. I admitted. We had a joint checking account for household expenses, but I think he had personal accounts I did not have access to. He mentioned life insurance through his work, but I do not know the details. Do you have any of his documents, papers, files, anything? I shook my head. Everything was at the house. Diane took it all. Mr. Patterson frowned. That could be considered concealment of assets. Did Marcus have an office, a workspace outside the home? He had an office at his architecture firm, but I do not know if he kept personal documents there. What about digital records, email, cloud storage? I paused. Something clicked in my memory. His laptop, I said slowly. He had a personal laptop. It was not at the house because my car was in the shop that week. He had been driving me to work, and he left the laptop in my car the day before the accident because he worked from a coffee shop near my school. Mr. Patterson leaned forward. Where is that laptop now? In my car, still in my car, which is parked at Jasmine's house. Get that laptop, Mr. Patterson said urgently. Get it and go through everything on it. Emails, documents, anything he might have stored. If Marcus made any provisions for you, if there are any records of assets or intentions, they might be there. Call me the moment you find anything. I left his office with the first flicker of hope I had felt in a week. It was small, barely there, but it was something. Something to do besides cry and grieve and feel helpless. Back at Jasmine's house, I retrieved the laptop from my car. It was a sleek silver MacBook, password protected. I tried our anniversary date. It worked. The desktop loaded, and I stared at the folders, unsure where to start. Then I saw it. A folder labeled for Penelope Emergency. My heart started pounding. I clicked it open. Inside were several files. A video file, a PDF, email threads, audio files. I opened the video first. Marcus appeared on screen. He was sitting in his home office, the one Diane had now claimed. He looked tired, worried. The date stamp showed this was recorded 3 months before he died. Penelope. His voice came through the speakers, and I started crying immediately. His voice, his face. For a moment, he was alive again. If you are watching this, something happened to me, and I need you to know something important. I listened, tears streaming down my face as Marcus told me he loved me. He told me the house, everything he owned, was meant for me. He told me about a will he had made, that it was with his private lawyer, that he had made sure I would be protected. My mother has been pressuring me to change things to give her more control, he said. She threatened that if I did not, she would make your life hell after I was gone. I did not believe her. I thought she would respect my marriage, respect you. But I wanted to be prepared. Everything is documented. Everything is legal. I made a will 3 months ago with Ms. Thornton, a lawyer my friend recommended. She has the original. I am leaving you this video in case something happens before I can tell you about it in person. His eyes filled with tears on the screen. I am sorry you are seeing this. It means I failed to protect you while I was alive, but I am going to protect you now. Everything I have is yours, Penelope. The house, the savings, everything. You were my wife, my partner, my love, and I made sure the law knows that. The video ended. I sat in stunned silence, then opened the PDF. It was a scanned copy of a will, a legal notarized witnessed will dated 3 months ago. In clear language, it stated that all of Marcus's assets, including the house on Maple Street, his investment accounts, his savings, and his life insurance policy were to go to me, his wife, Penelope. My hands shook as I opened the email thread. Correspondence with Ms. Thornton, a lawyer with a downtown Portland firm. Confirmations that the will was properly executed. Receipts for legal services. Everything documented, everything official. Then I played the audio file. It was a phone conversation. I recognized Diane's voice immediately. You are making a mistake leaving everything to that girl, Diane said. She is my wife, Mom. I love her. She is after your money. When you realize that, do not come crying to me. This conversation is over. My will stands. I have made my decision. Then you are choosing her over your family. I am choosing my wife, as I should, as any husband should. Goodbye, Mom. The call ended. I sat there surrounded by evidence that Marcus had loved me, had protected me, had tried to make sure I would be okay even if something happened to him. Diane had known about the will. She had known, and she had kicked me out anyway, banking on me not knowing my rights, not having access to these documents. But I had them now. I called Mr. Patterson immediately. I found it, I said, my voice steady for the first time in days. I found everything. Within an hour, I was back in Mr. Patterson's office with the laptop. He watched the video, read the will, listen to the audio file. With each piece of evidence, his expression grew more serious. This is extraordinary, he said finally. Your husband was thorough. This will is airtight, properly witnessed, properly notarized, completely legal. So I get the house back. You get everything back, the house, the bank accounts, the life insurance, all of it. This will supersedes any default inheritance laws. Diane has no legal claim to any of it. But why did she act like she did? Why kick me out if she knew about the will? Mr. Patterson's expression hardened. Because she was betting you did not know about it. She probably thought if she moved fast enough, intimidated you enough, you would just accept her version of reality and leave. By the time you figured out there was a will, she would have sold the house, distributed the assets, made it much harder for you to recover anything. What she did is called estate theft. It is illegal. Very illegal. Hope bloomed in my chest, fierce and bright. What do we do? First, we contact Ms. Thornton and get the original will. Then we file paperwork with the court to probate the will and establish you as the rightful heir. After that, we deal with Diane. How long will it take? Normally weeks. But given what Diane has already done, I can file for an emergency hearing. If we can prove she is actively concealing assets or disposing of property, a judge will act quickly. He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who had just found a case he was going to win. Diane made a mistake, a big one. She changed the locks on property she does not own. She threw out the rightful owner. And she did it all while knowing a will existed that contradicted her claims. That is not just civil wrongdoing. Depending on what else we find, there could be criminal charges. Criminal charges. Estate theft, fraud, possibly forgery if she tried to create any documents claiming ownership. We will see what shakes out. But Penelope, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. Good, I said, and I meant it. Let it get ugly. They made me feel like I was nothing. They kicked me out of my home the day after I buried my husband. They smiled while they destroyed me. I want them to face consequences. Mr. Patterson nodded. Then let us get to work. That afternoon, we contacted Ms. Thornton. She was horrified to hear what had happened. I sent a letter to your home address the day after Marcus died, she said. It was returned as undeliverable. I tried calling the number I had on file, but it went to voicemail. That was Marcus's cell phone number, now disconnected. Diane had made sure every avenue Ms. Thornton could use to contact me was blocked. Ms. Thornton confirmed she had the original will in her office safe. I can have it delivered to the courthouse tomorrow morning, she said. And Penelope, I want you to know Marcus was adamant about protecting you. He came to my office worried about his mother, worried she would try something like this. He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I would make sure you knew about the will. I failed you. I should have tried harder to reach you. You did not fail, I said. Diane deliberately cut off every way for you to reach me. This is not your fault. Within 2 days, Mr. Patterson had filed all the necessary paperwork. The will was submitted to probate court. We filed for an emergency hearing citing Diane's illegal eviction and potential concealment of assets. The judge reviewed the materials and scheduled a hearing for the following week. The day before the hearing, Mr. Patterson called me. I need to prepare you. Diane will have lawyers, good ones probably. They are going to fight this. Let them fight, I said. We have the truth. We do. But courtrooms are not always about truth. They are about evidence, procedure, and presentation. You need to stay calm tomorrow. Let me do the talking. If you are called to testify, answer questions simply and honestly. Do not get emotional. Do not get emotional. I laughed bitterly. They stole my home. I know, and that emotion is valid. But in court, we need you composed. We need the judge to see you as the wronged party, not as someone acting out of anger or revenge. Can you do that? I thought about it, about Marcus, about how he would want me to handle this, with dignity, with strength. Yes, I said, I can do that. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully in a simple navy suit Jasmine loaned me. I pulled my hair back, put on minimal makeup, looked at myself in the mirror. I looked calm, composed. Inside, I was terrified and furious in equal measure, but outside, I was the picture of a grieving widow seeking justice, which is exactly what I was. Jasmine and Troy came with me for support. We arrived at the courthouse 30 minutes early. Mr. Patterson met us outside, reviewed last-minute details, and then we walked into the courtroom together. Diane and Brielle were already there, sitting with a man in an expensive suit, who was clearly their lawyer. When Diane saw me walk in, her confident expression faltered for just a moment. Then she regained her composure and leaned over to whisper something to her lawyer. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Harrison, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, entered. We all stood then sat. This is an emergency probate hearing regarding the estate of Marcus William Blackwood, Judge Harrison said. I have reviewed the filings. This is highly irregular. Mr. Hastings, you represent Mrs. Diane Blackwood. Diane's lawyer stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client is the mother of the deceased and the rightful heir under Oregon intestacy law. The petitioner, Ms. Penelope, has no legal claim to the estate. Mr. Patterson, you represent the petitioner. Mr. Patterson stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client is the surviving spouse and the named beneficiary in a legally executed will that supersedes any intestacy claims. Judge Harrison raised an eyebrow. There is a will. Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Thornton, who is present in court today, is the attorney who drafted and holds the original document. Diane's lawyer looked genuinely surprised. He turned to Diane, who had gone pale. I watched her whisper urgently to him. He turned back to the judge. Your Honor, we were not aware of any will. If such a document exists, we would need time to verify its authenticity. It exists, Mr. Patterson said calmly, and it is entirely authentic, as Ms. Thornton will attest. But the existence of the will is only part of why we are here today. We are here because Mrs. Diane Blackwood, knowing that this will existed illegally, evicted my client from her rightful home, changed the locks, and attempted to claim property she has no legal right to. That is a serious accusation, Judge Harrison said. It is a serious crime, Mr. Patterson replied, which is why we are asking for emergency relief. For the next hour, I watched as lawyers argued, as Ms. Thornton testified about the will's creation, as Mr. Patterson presented evidence of Diane's actions. The video Marcus made played in court. I watched Diane's face as she heard her dead son say he loved me, that everything was meant for me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw her crack. Tears filled her eyes, but they were not tears of grief. They were tears of rage. Mr. Patterson played the audio recording of Diane and Marcus arguing. You are choosing her over your family. Her voice rang out in the silent courtroom. When it was over, Judge Harrison looked at Diane with an expression of deep disapproval. Mrs. Blackwood, did you or did you not know about the existence of this will when you evicted Mrs. Penelope from the property? Diane's lawyer tried to intervene, but Judge Harrison held up a hand. I asked Mrs. Blackwood directly. Diane lifted her chin defiantly. I knew Marcus had made some kind of document. I did not believe it was legally binding. You are not a lawyer, Mrs. Blackwood. You do not get to decide what is legally binding. That is what courts are for. Judge Harrison looked down at the paperwork in front of her. I have reviewed the will. It is properly executed, properly witnessed, and entirely clear. All assets of Marcus William Blackwood are to pass to his wife, Penelope Blackwood. Mrs. Diane Blackwood has no claim to any portion of the estate. Diane's lawyer tried one more time. Your Honor, my client acted in good faith based on her understanding of... Your client acted in deliberate bad faith to deprive a widow of her rightful inheritance. Judge Harrison interrupted. I am ruling that the will is valid. I am ordering Mrs. Diane Blackwood to immediately vacate the property at 1827 Maple Street and return all keys and access to Mrs. Penelope Blackwood. I am further ordering Mrs. Diane Blackwood to provide a full accounting of any estate assets she has accessed or moved. Finally, I am ordering her to pay Mrs. Penelope Blackwood's legal fees in this matter. If I find evidence of criminal wrongdoing, I will refer this case to the district attorney. Do you understand, Mrs. Blackwood? Diane stood shaking with fury. This is not over. That will is fraudulent. My son would never. Sit down, Judge Harrison said sharply, or I will hold you in contempt. Your son made his wishes clear. The court is upholding those wishes. You have 48 hours to vacate the property. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that felt like vindication. Diane turned to stare at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. For a week, she had made me feel small, powerless, disposable. Now, I looked back at her with steady eyes. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I just looked at her, and in that look was everything I needed to say. You underestimated me. You underestimated Marcus. You lost. She left the courtroom with Brielle hurrying after her. Mr. Patterson shook my hand. Congratulations, he said. You got everything back. Thank you, I said, for believing me, for fighting for me. Marcus fought for you first, he said gently. I just made sure his fight mattered. 48 hours later, I stood in front of 1827 Maple Street with a new set of keys in my hand. Jasmine and Troy stood beside me, ready to help me reclaim my home. The locksmith had already been changing everything back at the court's order and my expense. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house smelled different, like Diane's expensive perfume and something bitter. She had left it in disarray. Pictures were still down. Some furniture was moved. In the kitchen, I found evidence of her short occupation dishes in the sink, food in the refrigerator that she would not be coming back to claim. But it was still my home, still the place Marcus and I had built our life. I walked through each room remembering. Here was where we had danced on our first night in the house. There was where Marcus had surprised me with breakfast in bed on our anniversary. Every corner held a memory. Jasmine found me in the bedroom sitting on the bed Marcus and I had shared, crying quietly. Are you okay? She asked. I do not know, I admitted. I got the house back. I won. But Marcus is still gone, and getting justice does not bring him back. No, Jasmine said, sitting beside me. It does not, but it honors what you had. It proves that your marriage mattered, that Marcus loved you enough to protect you even after death. That means something. It did mean something. Over the next few days, as I unpacked my boxes and restored the house to how it had been, I felt Marcus's presence in every decision he had made to protect me. The will, the video, the careful documentation. He had known his family. He had known what they might do. And he had loved me enough to prepare for it. The financial details were staggering. When everything was finally sorted, the house, which was now legally in my name with no mortgage, $230,000 in savings and investment accounts I never knew existed, a life insurance policy worth $500,000 through his work. Marcus had been careful with money, had built security for us, for the future we were supposed to have together. Ms. Thornton helped me navigate the paperwork. She refused to charge me beyond what Marcus had already paid. He was a good man, she told me, and you were clearly very loved. I am glad you got what he wanted you to have. 2 weeks after the court decision, I received notice that Diane was being investigated for estate fraud. Brielle had given a statement to investigators, apparently turning on her mother to save herself. The investigation found that Diane had accessed Marcus's personal bank accounts after his death, transferring $50,000 to her own account before the court intervened. Criminal charges were filed. Eventually, Diane pleaded guilty to avoid trial. She was sentenced to 1 year suspended, meaning she would not go to jail as long as she repaid what she stole and stayed out of legal trouble. She was also fined $50,000 for the illegal eviction and court costs. I heard through Mr. Patterson that she had to sell her home to cover the fines and restitution. Brielle called me one evening 3 months after everything ended. I almost did not answer, but curiosity won out. Penelope, she said, her voice small, I am calling to apologize. Okay, I said neutrally. I was wrong. We were wrong. Mom convinced me you were after Marcus's money, that you did not really love him. But watching everything that happened, seeing that video he made, I realized he really did love you. And you loved him. I am sorry for my part in hurting you. Thank you for saying that, I said. But Brielle, you watched your mother kick me out of my home the day after I buried my husband. You helped her pack my things. You stood there and called me a gold digger. An apology does not erase that. I know. I just wanted you to know I am sorry. I do not expect forgiveness. Good, I said, because I am not ready to forgive. Maybe I never will be. What you and your mother did was cruel beyond measure. She was quiet for a moment. Mom is not doing well. The legal stuff destroyed her financially. She asks about you sometimes, says you ruined her life. I ruined her life. I could not help the bitter laugh. She tried to ruin mine. I simply defended what was rightfully mine. I know. You are right. I should not have called. I am sorry for bothering you. She hung up. I blocked her number and never looked back. I returned to teaching that fall. My students, sweet 4 and 5-year-olds, had no idea what I had been through. To them, I was just Miss Penelope, who helped them learn letters and numbers and how to share toys nicely. The simplicity of their world was healing. They did not care about wills or inheritance or family betrayal. They cared about whether snack time had crackers or cookies, whether they could play outside, whether I would read their favorite story again. I joined a grief support group for young widows and widowers. Hearing other people's stories, sharing my own, helped me process the layers of loss and trauma. The grief for Marcus, the shock of his family's betrayal, the violation of being thrown out of my home, the fear I felt during those days when I thought I had lost everything. Slowly, month by month, I healed. Not completely, maybe never completely, but enough to live to work to find moments of joy again. I used some of the money Marcus left me to establish a scholarship fund in his name at the local community college for students studying architecture or education. Marcus had loved creating spaces where people could build their lives. I loved helping children learn. It felt right to honor both of us this way. The first scholarship was awarded to a young woman who wanted to design schools. At the small ceremony, they asked me to say a few words about Marcus. I stood up in front of strangers and talked about the man I loved, the man who had protected me even in death, the man whose faith in me had saved me when his own family tried to destroy me. Marcus believed in building foundations, I said. Not just in architecture, but in life. He built a foundation of love, trust, and protection. Even when he was gone, that foundation held. It held me up when I was falling. It gave me strength when I felt weak. And now I hope this scholarship helps others build strong foundations too. That would make him happy. After the ceremony, a young man approached me. He was one of the other scholarship finalists studying architecture. I am sorry for your loss, he said. Your husband sounds like he was an amazing person. He was, I said simply. Thank you. Can I ask you something? How did you get through it, losing him and everything that happened after? I thought about his question. One day at a time, I said finally. Some days, 1 hour at a time. And by remembering that the people who truly love you will show it through their actions, not their words. Marcus showed his love by protecting me. My friends showed their love by standing beside me. That is how I survived. I let the people who loved me help me, and I let go of the people who only wanted to hurt me. 6 months had passed since Marcus died. 6 months since Diane kicked me out. 6 months since I stood in a courtroom and won back everything that should have been mine. Now I stood in my backyard on a cool April morning looking at the rose bushes Marcus and I had planted together. They were blooming vibrant red and pink and white against the green of spring growth. I knelt down and touched one of the roses gently. I wish you were here, I whispered to Marcus wherever he was. I wish you could see that I am okay. Not great, not healed, but okay, and getting better. I thought about the journey from that first terrible day when I found the locks changed to now, The fear, the anger, the fight, the victory. It had been the hardest thing I had ever gone through. Harder than losing Marcus in some ways because grief was natural. But fighting his family for my right to exist in the space we had built together was something I never should have had to do, but I did do it. I fought. I won. And I learned things about myself I never knew before. I learned I was stronger than I thought. I learned that love, real love, protects beyond death. I learned that family is not always blood, and blood is not always family. Jasmine and Troy had become my family in ways Diane and Brielle never could be. Ms. Thornton and Mr. Patterson, people who had been strangers, had fought for me when my husband's own relatives had tried to destroy me. That taught me something profound about loyalty, about character, about the kinds of people worth keeping in your life. I stood up and looked at the house. My house. The home Marcus wanted me to have. I had redecorated slightly, adding touches that were just mine, now not ours. A new painting in the living room, different curtains in the bedroom, small changes that acknowledged that my life was different now that I was living forward rather than trying to recreate the past. The money Marcus left me had given me security I never imagined having. I could pay off the house completely if I wanted, though Mr. Patterson advised keeping the mortgage for tax reasons. I could take time off work if I needed to. I could afford therapy, grief counseling, the support I needed to process everything that had happened. But more than the money, more than the house, Marcus had given me something else. Proof that I was valued, that I was loved, that I mattered. In a world where his mother had tried to erase me, his careful planning had made sure I could not be erased. Every document, every video, every piece of evidence said the same thing. You are important, you are cherished, you are protected. That was the real inheritance. Not money or property, but the knowledge that I had been truly deeply loved. I thought about Diane sometimes, usually late at night when I could not sleep. I wondered if she regretted her choices. I wondered if she understood that by trying to take everything from me, she had lost what little connection she might have had to her son's memory. I would never forgive her. But I also did not hate her anymore. Hate required energy I no longer wanted to spend on her. She was facing consequences for her choices. That was enough. I did not need revenge beyond that. I just needed to live my life, the life Marcus had worked so hard to secure for me. I thought about the lessons I would carry forward, that actions matter more than words, that real love shows itself in difficult times, that sometimes the worst moments reveal who truly cares about you, and who only cares about what you can give them. That standing up for yourself, even when it is terrifying, is always worth it. And most importantly, I learned that resilience is not about never falling down. It is about getting back up even when everything in you wants to stay on the ground. It is about fighting for yourself when no one else will. It is about believing you deserve better, even when people try to convince you that you deserve nothing. I went back inside the house, made myself coffee, and sat at the kitchen table where Marcus and I had shared so many breakfasts. The morning sun came through the window the way it always had. The house felt peaceful finally. Not sad, not haunted by loss, just peaceful. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. Coffee this afternoon. Want to hear about my latest work disaster? I smiled and texted back. Absolutely. My place or yours? Yours. I love your backyard. Come at 3. I set the phone down and looked around the kitchen. This was my life now. Smaller than I thought it would be, different than I planned, but still mine. Still worth living. Still full of possibility. I thought about something one of the counselors at the grief group had said. The goal is not to get over loss. The goal is to learn to live with it, to integrate it into who you are, rather than letting it define you completely. I was learning to do that. Marcus's death would always be part of my story, but it was not the only part. The fight with his family would always be something I remembered, but it was not what defined me. What defined me was how I fought back, how I stood up for myself, how I claimed the life Marcus wanted me to have. Sometimes the worst moments reveal who truly loves you. Marcus loved me. His actions from beyond the grave proved that more than any words ever could. And sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well, living fully, refusing to let the people who tried to break you have any more of your energy or attention. I was living, not just surviving, but actually living, going back to work, seeing friends, making plans, having quiet mornings with coffee and sunlight, planting new flowers in the garden, reading books, laughing occasionally, crying when I needed to. Existing in this new version of my life that would never be what I planned, but could still be good. The house was quiet around me, just me and my memories and my future, whatever that might look like. I finished my coffee, rinsed the cup, and walked to Marcus's photo on the mantel. It was from our wedding day, both of us laughing at something the photographer said. "Thank you," I whispered to the photo, "for loving me, for protecting me, for fighting for me, even when you could not be here to fight in person. I promise I will make this life you secured for me count for something. I promise I will not waste the gift you gave me." I touched the frame gently, then turned away. There was laundry to do, groceries to buy, lesson plans to prepare for Monday, life to live. And that I realized was exactly what Marcus would want. I am Penelope. I am 34 years old. I am a widow, a teacher, a survivor, a fighter. I am the woman who lost everything and then won it all back. I am the woman who learned that real love protects, that real family shows up when it matters, and that sometimes standing up for yourself is the most important thing you will ever do. My husband's family tried to destroy me. They kicked me out of my home. They told me I was nothing, that I had no rights, that I should just disappear quietly and let them erase me from Marcus's life story. But they forgot one thing. Marcus loved me, and he made sure that love would protect me even after he was gone. That was their biggest mistake. Not kicking me out, not stealing my home. Their biggest mistake was underestimating the depth of what Marcus and I had, and underestimating me. I smile sometimes thinking about Diane's face in that courtroom when she realized she had lost, when she understood that all her cruelty, all her calculation, all her certainty that she could just take what she wanted had led her here defeated by the love of the son she tried to use against me. That moment taught me something I will never forget. Love is not just an emotion. It is a choice, an action, a commitment. Marcus chose to love me by protecting me. I chose to love him by fighting for what we built together. And in the end, that was more powerful than all of Diane's schemes. So if you are going through something similar, if someone is trying to take from you what is rightfully yours, if people are telling you that you do not matter, or that you should just give up, I want you to know this. Fight. Stand up for yourself. Get help from people who actually care about you. Do not let anyone make you feel like you deserve less than what is yours. And remember, sometimes the people who try hardest to hurt you end up teaching you the most important lessons. Diane taught me that I am stronger than I ever knew. She taught me that I can survive things I never thought I could face. She taught me that winning is not about revenge, but about reclaiming your dignity and your life. The roses Marcus planted are blooming. The house we built together is mine. The life he wanted me to have is the life I am living. And every single day I make the choice to honor his love by living fully, by refusing to let bitterness consume me, by remembering that the best revenge is simply being happy, despite everything those who hurt you tried to do. That is my story. That is how I survived the worst days of my life and came out the other side still standing, still fighting, still here. And I am still here. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up against family for what was rightfully yours? Have you experienced betrayal from people you thought would support you? How did you find the strength to keep going when everything felt impossible? Please, share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who is going through their own fight. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel for more real stories about resilience, strength, and overcoming life's hardest challenges. Share this with someone who might need to hear it, who might need to know that it is possible to lose everything and still win in the end. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. And remember, you are stronger than you think. You deserve to fight for yourself. And sometimes, the people who love you leave behind protections you did not even know you needed until the moment you need them most. Take care of yourselves and never let anyone convince you that you are worth less than everything.